Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm, and you are watching fourth and final part of What If Naruto Was Raised by Joker. If you enjoy this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, wasting no more time, let's start the story.
How did Joker hit Gaara in the jaw so quickly? The Cage didn't understand. He knew that using a lot of chakra on speed techniques would only get you so far before the top speed reached a peak and stayed there. After that, it would be a waste of energy. They could speed up the user so much that even combining them with speed boosts that aren't chakra-based doesn't change how fast they are. It seemed like the Cage could only think of two solutions: pure speed or a new seal matrix that temporarily made the user faster. The Otokage had also come to the same conclusion, but he liked the thought that Joker might have used wind-natured chakra in front of him to create a vacuum that would help him move forward. The master knew exactly what the old Uzumaki did. He did use a speed technique, but no one had told him how fast it could go. When the clown ninja knew this was a limitation, he thought he was doing the jutsu wrong and changed it to make it work faster. The Hokage turned his smug attention back to the start of the match below. In order to get the crowd excited, Harley said, "I know I can't beat you, you crazy person. But I'll put up a good showing anyway." Naruto made a face. "Wouldn't have it any other way, muscles." "Okay." Joker laughed. "You may begin beating the organs out of each other." The first thing Choji did was get bigger, turning himself into a huge ball and putting his head and limbs inside it. Nakuden Sensha. He rolled quickly toward the blonde ninja, making the young clown have to avoid him. Naruto had to change the air around him to move because his normal speed with his weights on wasn't fast enough to get out of the way. As the Otokage looked at what was going on, the Cage was still thinking about how Joker hit his son so quickly. She saw that the younger ninja had thin wisps of chakra coming off of him. She thought that since Joker was said to be Naruto's father, the older Uzumaki had the same wind manipulation skills as his son, but they were better. Choji turned wide to go back on the attack, and Naruto reached inside his jacket with both hands. Minnow Cloud. As soon as the blonde threw his hands up in the air, hundreds of tiny fish sank to the arena floor, leaving their slippery bodies all over the place. Choji's body started to slip on the fish as Naruto dove out of the way. This made Choji spin out of control, hitting one of the few trees that was still standing in the arena wall. The Akamichi said, "Ow," as he stopped his jutsu. He walked around and looked at the ground. "Fish?" "Fish fu," Naruto brazenly said. He smiled and reached into the pockets of his jacket to get a pair of bean paste buns. The blonde raised an eyebrow, and Choji spoke up. "Your clan is not the first to devise food-based weaponry. And with all those fish on the ground around you, it will be difficult for you to dodge these." Choji then threw the bun from his right hand straight at the young clown's head. Two things happened as Naruto tried to avoid the attack. The pastry went off when he tripped over one of the minnows on the ground. There was an explosive tag inside, and there was also a chemical capsule inside. It released a knockout toxin when it mixed with the bean paste. Because the explosive tag sped up the solution, it turned into a gas. Naruto slid down the ground and stopped. He tried to get up, but the other bean paste bun did not stop rolling in front of his face. The blonde's eyes got as big as dinner plates right before it blew up. It was loud enough for everyone in the stadium to hear Choji as he talked to Joker. "My clan calls them concussion buns. Your son should be out for no longer than an hour." Joker just smiled back, as if Choji had said something funny. That big boy knew what that smile meant right before he was hit in the face by a very big sea bass. "I'll give you a concussion," Naruto yelled as he kept hitting the bigger boy with the still-living fish. Naruto didn't have his hite 8, and bean paste and breadcrumbs were all over his face, hair, and clothes. The clown started to sing a little song as he hit the Akamichi with the sea bass that was barely alive. "Heads of fish. Heads of fish. Fish heads that roly-poly. Eat them. Yum. Hey, fish." It looks like Choji listened to Naruto because he caught the fish in his teeth and started to swallow it whole. As Naruto pulled on the tail one last time to try to free his dead weapon, the bigger boy pulled out one of his fists and slammed it into the blonde's gut, sending the smaller boy flying backwards. "You're not as strong as my grandmother." Made fun of Choji after he ate the sea bass. "Well, you fight like a dairy farmer." Naruto laughed as he did this. "That's right," Choji replied, crossing his arms. "You fight like a cow." The boys stared at each other for a moment before they both laughed out loud. Why are they there? Asked Tamari, who was getting angry. Exchanging words, Shino said. Obviously, Konkuro said. Shino got a mean look from Tamari. What I meant was, why are they being so unprofessional? They should be trying to get more people to come to your hidden village, not making you all look like fools. I take it that you haven't spent any real amount of time in the likes of Might Guy or Hitaki Kakashi yet, Shino said. Much less Uzumaki Joker or Uzumaki Harley. Gah. You mean to say that my home is always being overshadowed by a village full of crazy people? Yelled a furious Tamari. Not yet, Shino said in answer. What do you mean by, yet? Asked Konkuro with some doubt. Not all of them are crazy, Shino said, putting his glasses higher on his nose. But we're working on that. The Aburame was joking, but no one could tell. The Gaara, who had been quiet until then, blinked. As Naruto reached for his jacket, Choji reached into his pocket for another concussion bun. The blonde pulled out a manta ray and used it as a shield as Naruto threw his pastry grenade. The poor thing died right away. As Naruto rushed forward, he threw ray after smiling ray at the bigger boy. Choji tried to slap the weird fish away, but they grabbed his hands with their painful teeth and held them there. They distracted the Akamichi long enough for the blonde to pull out an electric eel and hit Choji in the face with it. The stress caused the eel to discharge, shocking both genin and killing the piranha. Naruto got up, brushed off most of the bean paste and stood up. That's how you knock someone out, said the blonde. His father walked up to Choji, who wasn't moving, and confirmed that the boy was still breathing and was, in fact, unconscious. Now that's a food fight. That shows that Konoha has a ninja for everyone, even if you don't like sushi. Most of the people in the crowd thought what was said was funny. Are you trying to run a lunch business or a hidden village, Hokage Dono? Made fun of the Otokage. You know, I'm never sure anymore. These two leaders of Konoha just stood there and stared at the leader with a straight face. Naruto went back to the balcony just as Harley called the next two matches. Now, we used a computer program to pick the rest of the 4 genin at random. Sabaku no Konkuro and Aburame Shino are ranked 1 and 3. And Sabaku no Gaara and Uzumaki Naruto are number 2 and 4. That means the Suna brothers will fight next, followed by the 2 Konohanin teammates. Could the brothers Sabaku please come down? Are you Joker? I give up. I said Konkuro. Lame. The clown replied. That did not last long at all. Joker shook his head and called down the last 2 genin. To everyone's surprise, Shino and Naruto both just took the stairs. Do your kids not trust each other, Kage Dono? Why? Asked Sarutobi Hiruzen. The Kage didn't bother to answer. I want epic violence, boys, Joker said. Start. While Naruto started taking off the weights, Shino spread out a big part of his colony out into the open. Both boys then started moving around the arena very quickly, one without the help of a jutsu and the other using kawarimi to great effect. They didn't seem to be able to touch each other for a few minutes, but the blurs looked impressive to the leaders of the different countries. This made most of the wealthy and powerful people value Konoha even more than they did before, which made the Kage very angry. As long as we win, the Kage thought, people will stop thinking these tree lovers are weak. That is, if Konoha is still around after today. The elephant and hawk Anbu behind him were calm, but the rat Anbu behind the Hokage, who knew a lot about human psychology, thought they were almost overflowing with energy. They were shaking so little because they were trying so hard not to. The tiger Anbu, who had a different set of skills, could tell that the 2 snake Anbu were actually hiding 2 people, even though they were small. Tiger quietly told the Hokage this, and the old man didn't give Tiger any surprises. Naruto stopped chasing Shino around for a while when they got back to the arena. Neither boy was tired. The blonde said, "You seem to have more endurance than you did a month ago." The tougher boy replied, "Thanks a lot." Oh? During those weeks, we didn't meet up very often. We did not, Shino said. When Naruto looked confused, the other boy went on, "Your family has an aura around them. In their presence, one becomes stronger if they can stay there for a long time. I think this is the real power of the Uzumaki bloodline." But before Naruto could answer, Shino bit his thumb and ran it down the front of his jacket. Seals that had been put there with an invisible dye lit up and then turned black. Shino himself turned black, and it moved. Naruto figured out what Shino had done. He opened an advanced storage seal that could hold smaller, simpler living things without killing them, and Shino's unique breed of Kakaichu insects were let out, enough to fill 2 whole colonies. The chakra from Shino made the bugs quickly spread out, making many small swarms around the arena. Naruto realized that Shino had disappeared into one of these swarms. The bug he could still see was a copy of Shino. Calling for help, eh? This is what Naruto asked his opponent who was hidden, Kachiyose, Double Mask. Many of the bugs were blown out of the arena by a huge explosion of energy and smoke. The air was filled with laughter as a huge dog-like animal stepped forward into the real world. The beast was the size of a hay wagon and had dark fur all over. The only piece of armor it wore was a golden mask that looked like the face of a stern man with a beard. The beast's eyes could not be seen, but its lower jaw could. On the back of its head was the other half of the mask, which was silver. "Welcome, Janus, watchman of the door." "Well, this is unexpected, but well met, clown pup," said the hyena. "I can hear you have hundreds of thousands of opponents today." "Yes, I'm in this tournament with my best friend. He called for more help, so. They say you Uzumaki usually do things by overkill." Janus laughed out loud. "But by calling me, you gave him a small chance to win. It's not my strong suit to fight large groups of people, but if you kill the alpha, the rest of the pack will back off. I don't think Shino will let us talk any longer." The summon got a lot of attention from the swarms. Aw. They want to become friends. After hearing the joke, Janus rolled over and crushed thousands of the bugs. As they rushed towards him, a swarm started to glow, but one of his exposed ears twitched, and a golden hole in the air appeared in front of them before they could reach the big hyena. Near the arena wall, a silver hole opened up, and the bugs fell out and hit the concrete. "Look at my power, the door. If I don't want to be hurt, no attack can." Shino's disguise jutsu was taken away when Janus suddenly kicked out with his back leg. Shino crashed into the wall and fell to the ground. "I can hear you even though I can't see you." "No need to say sorry, Shino, but you lost," I said Naruto while putting a kunai around Shino's neck. "I did, right?" "Yes," Shino agreed, his voice rough as he spoke. "I'll beat you next time, though. I'm excited about it." Janus laughed and disappeared in a cloud of smoke right before Joker announced that Naruto had won. "How about that, everyone? Konoha is where the hyena jackal summoning contract is kept." As he smiled, Sarutobi Hiruzen told the case cage, "I'm sorry. Maybe I should tell Uzumaki-san to stop trying to sell you things. I can tell it bothers you." As he held on to the case cage's chair, the arms broke even more. The Otokage laughed at the joke. Gaara walked down the stairs with a crazy grin on his face, and the young clown didn't even bother to get his weights back. Gaara was thrilled that his opponent was stronger than most of the Junin Gaara had killed before. His mother was demanding his blood. It was too bad that the blonde made him laugh in a way that no one else had, but maybe that would make his death more satisfying. Now for the grand finale. The last game. Naruto Uzumaki vs. Sabaku no Gaara. "I'd ask for a clean fight," Joker said, "but that would be pointless. Let's start." The blonde quickly dodged the sand that was thrown at Naruto. The young clown charged forward to attack, but Gaara's sand shield moved to block him. By this time, Naruto had already kicked the redhead in the groin and knocked him out. "Pathetic taijutsu skills," a Junin in the crowd said. "You think Suna would train their weapon, even if only a little," said someone else. "Some Jinchuriki are just lazy," said someone else. Mother screamed for blood, and Gaara was only too happy to give it to her. This time, the redhead really hated the blonde clown. Before Naruto could attack, sand swirled around the prone Jinchuriki and formed a sphere. Every time Naruto hit it, it made spikes around it to try to spear him. Before making a choice, the blonde took a step back and looked at what was going on, trying to see it from as many different, twisted angles as possible. He reached for the nape of his neck and seemed to pull a strange weapon out of his shirt. It was Clarice. Blam. The sand sphere was hit by buckshot many times. The blast made a dent in it, but it didn't do any real damage. The sphere reformed before Naruto could pull the trigger again. Blam. The slug pierced the shield and made a hole in the sphere of sand, but he missed the redhead inside. He could hear her laughing and muttering before the sand started racing at him to defend itself. As he dove to avoid it, he saw that the sphere had reformed again. Harley called it Hammerspace, and he took Clarice back to it. He continued to avoid the sand while making hand seals. What kind of gun was that? Are you really interested in this new technology? Asked the Otokage. He replied, one that only the Uzumaki family has. They won't give it to anyone else. The 8 bands on Kachiyose. And Naruto screamed. Through the smoke, 3 clear laughs could be heard all around the arena. A jackal the size of a house with 3 heads stood tall over the sand sphere, and Naruto was sitting on the back of the middle head. All set, Hachiman. Why? Naruto asked. All set, all set. Was that a cake? Ignoring Sanman, Ichiman and Yanman both said at the same time, transformation, Kabikari Honcho. There was only a huge Zanbatu left when the whole beast vanished. It fell straight toward Gaara's sand sphere, where Naruto grabbed the handle and pointed it downwards, cutting through the sand barrier. Gaara screamed in pain as the blade went right through his collarbone. Because of the angle and the sand, it missed his vitals and head by just a few centimeters. The barrier blew apart, throwing the young clown away. Gaara knelt under the blade that used to belong to Zabuza, holding his bleeding collar and crying out in pain. There was another explosion in the cage box, and the Otokage's bodyguards moved to each corner of the roof. The Kage's Anbu attacked the Hokages, and the Yondaime Kage jumped to attack Joker, but Harley blocked him. Naruto woke up in a heap on the arena floor and saw that many people in the stands were asleep. Temari and Kankuro had rushed to help Gaara while Joker and Harley fought the Kage and his Anbu. As the Sabaku siblings left the arena, Naruto ran after them quickly. Joker ran over to where Hachiman was stuck in the ground and ripped the sword out of his grip. Harley, meanwhile, pulled out what looked like a big squeaky mallet. The Hokage and the rat Anbu were stuck behind some kind of strange barrier. The Otokage was on the roof, and the tiger Anbu was lying dead on the ground with several kunai stuck through his shoulders. Rat didn't seem to care that he had some kunai sticking out of his shoulders. Sarutobi looked around and saw 4 people dressed as the 2 snake Anbu at each corner of the roof. They were keeping the barrier up, so no one could get out or get help from outside. The Hokage turned to look at the woman known as the Otokage just as she threw another kunai at Rat and stuck it through one of his mosque's eyeholes. Now that is over with, she began, her voice sounding eerily like someone else's as she spoke. We can start catching up, eh sensei? Oh, Korkamaru. It's been a while, right? The Hokage smiled back at her as she took off her face like it was a mask. The snake Sanin's face was smiling. I see you're still walking around in women's clothing. Hey. I told you before. Orochimaru yelled, his face flaring with anger. That one time, Tsunade, Jiraiya, and I were all drunk. True, but this time you're wearing a woman's body too, not just her clothes. Arg. The man with dark hair yelled, how the F*** did you figure that one out? He replied with a smirk, I see too many weird things these days. This made his former student even more angry. Someone from the Itonin class was told to break into the Uzumaki estate and take all the bloodline research that was hidden there. There were 20 ninjas sent. 12 of them were killed in minutes by the lawn gnomes. One of the last 8 set off an infrared sensor that let light into one of the windows. She was killed by a guillotine blade just above the hips. 2 more had crept up on one of the walls. And were squished by a steel wall panel powered by rockets. There were 2 more that got in through a window and into Bonnie and Clyde's pen. Harley found their bones 2 days later. One unlucky Itonin did make it inside, but they walked into a gas chamber by accident. He had to be sealed inside before Smilex was pumped into the room on its own. A different person went into Naruto's old nursery and stepped on some caltrops that were lying around. He tripped and fell on top of himself. He then grabbed a shelf that wasn't attached to the wall properly and pulled it down. The things on that shelf were all very sharp, and one of them had cut his jugular vein open. The last burglar got in through a window, but his foot got caught in the radiator under the sill, he fell, and his head hit a filing cabinet. The next morning, Joker found him there, still asleep. He had the worst luck of all 20 people who tried to break into the Uzumaki manor. Naruto kept going after Gaara through the forest, charging himself up with the Kyuubi's chakra while he reloaded Clarice with slugs. He also sent out about 50 Kage Bunshin every few minutes to stop anyone from following him. Naruto couldn't move faster than the Sand siblings right now because he needed a lot of chakra to call up Hachiman and keep making shadow copies of himself, but he kept up with them. They would get tired eventually, but he seemed to have almost endless stamina. The game was a moving weight, and he would win. The young clown had a crazy smile. As Joker swung the huge sword around, he yelled, "Second banner, barrier." People outside of the stadium could hear Sandman laughing silly as a flag appeared above it, blocking off the arena and trapping Joker, Harley, and the cage inside. Harley's squeaky hammer hit the cage, but she dodged it and hit Harley in the chest with a kick. He made a face at Joker. "Trying to stop me from getting help?" He laughed. "Nope," the clown said. "I just don't want you to get away." Harley swung again at the cage, but the man quickly moved out of the way. But the hammer didn't squeak. It exploded, throwing the cage toward Joker. The clown smiled and swung the huge sword in a low arc. He had to quickly change positions to block the cage's wind-assisted punch with the flat of the blade. "Oh, you'll be so much fun to play with." Jester laughed as Harley threw a big, old leather boot at the cage and hit him in the back of the head, knocking off his cage hat. The Hokage was working hard and out of breath, but Orochimaru was having fun. The old man was keeping up, but he was getting tired. Orochimaru laughed and put his foot on the stomach of the dead rat Anbu. Now was the time for the big surprise. Kachiyose. Edo 10 Ak. Something had grabbed his legs, making it impossible for him to focus on his jutsu. Rat's hands were what Orochimaru saw when he looked down. He jumped back and kicked the parts away, not sure what was going on. But the Anbu, who still had a kunai in his eye, jumped forward to chase the Sannin. To push the kunai even deeper into Rat's brain, Orochimaru pressed his palm against the pommel. The thing laughed though. The Anbu's mask, clothes, and body all turned a strange, sickly tan color. As a new mouth closed around Orochimaru's hand, the one that was touching the kunai, it got bigger. The Sannin pulled his hand away, but some of the thing inside it stuck to him and wouldn't let him move his fingers. He tried to get rid of the substance, but it had also wrapped around his other hand. The thing said, "Mission complete, Hokage-sama." "Thank you, Doman," the old man said. His tone became condescending as he shook his finger at Orochimaru, who used to be his student. "No more jutsus for you, young man." No matter how hard Orochimaru tried to pull his hands apart, the clay-like substance quickly became hard and made it pointless. An enemy was killed by both the Jukin and the Chakra Scalpel. This was how fast and fierce Hinata was. Joker taught her his speed jutsu. She was glad. She was having fun. She had cuts in her jugular veins and carotid arteries all over her body. To be honest, she was really scaring her dad. As he beat his opponents, he looked at her and wondered what made her so different. Without a doubt, she was stronger than he thought. A lot stronger. Yet, she was also scary. The crazy joy on her face as she killed Itonin and Sunanin had no place on a Hyuga. Still, it was there. Also, her chakra looked a little off. Hiyashi was worried about his daughter, who he used to think was not good enough. What if the Hyuga elders thought she was too strong or that the way she fought was too strange? To get back at the young Uzumaki, what if they chose to brand her? What if she chose to get back at her own family for how they treated her? She might be able to kill everyone in the main house. He thought, this is not good. I'm not sure what I can do to keep her safe. Too much time seems to have been spent with the Kyuubi brat for me to be able to separate them and fix the damage. Still, it was probably his influence that made her so strong. She then began to sing, which made Hiyashi's blood run cold. A little. Too small. 3 little Itonin. She put a pause in that sentence by jumbling an Itonin's brains inside his head. 4 small. 15 little. 6 little Sunanin. A chakra scalpel and the Jukin were used together to quickly cut a hole all the way through a Sunanin's chest. She then ripped out his heart. 7 small. 8 little. 9 little victims. At this point, she just broke a man's neck. And there's so many more to kill. This is not good at all. Kankuro slowed down to try to stop Naruto and give Gaara and Temari more time. He saw that the blonde was coming up behind him and would pass to his left, so he moved to block her. The young clown smiled when he saw Kankuro and then vanished in a puff of smoke. Kankuro looked to the right and saw a wall of blondes in black running toward him. He knew they were all real because of how they lived in the forest. In this case, there were only two real things he could do. He did both of them. He screamed FFFFFFFFFFUUUUUUUUUUU as he ran for his life, leaving Karasu behind by accident. The cage got past Joker's guard and was about to use wind jutsu on the clown's head when an ethereal jackal head snuck out of the Zanbatu's blade and bit him on the shoulder. Harley was ready with a caustic fist when it jerked and threw the leader of Suna backward. She chose to hit the man in the shoulder with both fists, which hurt the cage very badly because the acid and poison hurt the torn flesh. The cage did the right thing by not yelling. Instead, he whipped the wind around him, which threw Harley off by its massive power. He had to roll out of the way as Joker swung the huge sword over his head. If the cage hadn't moved in time, the clown would have cut him in half vertically. He laughed as he pulled the sword out of the ground and said, "Sixth banner, magnetism, negative." Yeonman's ghostly head came out of the blade and spat out another banner. Even though the cage was able to roll to his feet, he couldn't avoid getting hit in the chest by the partially clear banner. It didn't have an effect on him, but it got into him. He could feel a seal putting itself together on his chest. It was powered by his chakra. Fifth banner. Magnetism, positive. Said the Joker with a grin that looked like the cat that ate the canary. A banner popped up on top of the sword, making a seal appear on both sides of the flat part of the blade. The cage could feel the effect right away. He thought his chest should move toward the sword. He had to control the wind a lot just to keep from tripping over the blade. He tripped a bit, but when Joker swung the Zanbato over his head, he got back on his feet. He kept spinning it, making the cage more and more drawn to the crazy clown laughing until it was impossible for him to help himself. When he heard a clicking sound, like metal touching metal, it made his sense of danger go through the roof. He took a quick look at Harley, who was standing up. She had something big in her hands that had a bunch of metal pipes coming out of one end and pointing at him. They started to spin around a fixed point. Harley cried, "I'd like to take you to meet a friend of mine. His name is Freddy." The cage knew he had to move as soon as the gun went off, but the only way he could go was toward the Joker. He stopped changing the wind and tried to start it up again to stay away from the deadly blade. The cage thought the clown was far away, but the clown was actually walking toward him while he was looking at Harley's chain gun. Not right. His head went a long way before it hit the barrier. He had a look of complete shock and disbelief on his face. Naruto sped up to catch up with the brother and sister from Suna. He did this after sending about 100 clones to keep Konkuro busy and having a couple more get the puppet. It occurred to the young clown that Gaara had probably healed a bit from the injury to his collarbone, but he wasn't concerned. It didn't matter how quickly the other Jinchuriki healed. The area would still be sore and weak. Both of the siblings slowed down and turned to face the blonde Jinchuriki. Tamari put her body between Gaara and the blonde to protect her. The blonde, on the other hand, didn't agree and pushed her out of the way. Naruto used this time to think about how Gaara's shape had changed. Based on the shape of the sand covering him, he looked like a tanuki in part, and a lot of sand was on his hurt shoulder. We can say that he was talking to his demon. Come on, Kyuubi. Do you understand what that means? Crap. Okay, here comes one tail's worth of chakra. When a red shroud wrapped around Naruto's body, it gave him fox ears and a tail. The clones that were guarding his sides started to laugh. Gaara started to growl. Tamari prayed that her brother would be safe. Naruto yelled, "Caustic Shroud." The fox shroud changed color from red to a sickly green. Before he jumped off the branch to attack Gaara, the blonde made it start to break apart. Orochimaru used the Kusanagi, grass cutter, the sword that is always poisoned and was once the pride of Kusagakure no Sato, ninja village hidden in grass, before it was lost in a fight with the Sannin. He might not have been able to use his hands, but he could still use the weapon from his mouth, showing that he was still very dangerous even without karate. When Doman and the Hokage were briefed earlier, they learned about the Kusanagi. He was determined not to get hit by it because he didn't know how the poison would affect his body. He spread the different kunai he had taken on when he showed his true form all over his body and pushed them to the surface whenever the sword was about to touch him. In this way, he unintentionally mirrored the Kaguya bloodline, at least the defensive part. But what really helped was that the Hokage had called up King Enma, who had turned into a strong staff. The old man now said he would turn Orochimaru's head into paste while Domon's feet ate some roof tiles so he could throw them at the snake Sanin. Hiyashi went up to Hinata after most of the nearby enemy ninjas had been killed. He had a sad face. "Daughter, we need to talk." "Oh, I agree, father." "I agree." This was a surprise. "Why you do?" "Ah, how cute." Its father's turn to stutter. In his mind, the older Hyuga shook himself and made up his mind. "Your behavior today is most unbecoming of a Hyuga heir." "Well, isn't that a relief?" Her dad took a quick blink. He kept falling over because of her. "Why, you know that the elders may decide to bebrand you with the caged bird seal, especially to get back at the Uzumaki heir." "They can try," she said with a small laugh. "I'm surprised you didn't notice already, but I've already got a seal on me." When she rolled up her right sleeve, a tight seal that looked like a 7-pointed star wrapped around a spiral could be seen on her upper arm. Hiyashi didn't understand what it was for. "What? What does that do? Who put it on you?" "Naruto-kun asked Jiraiya-sama of the Sanin to put it on me," she said, pulling her sleeve back down. "It prevents any further seal work from being added to my body." The head of the Hyuga clan became a little calmer. So he anticipated what would happen after today and prevented anyone from branding you. That made Hiyashi think for a moment. Actually, Naruto-kun just didn't want anyone else to be able to control me. Gaara had to use his sand to block Naruto's attacks because the blonde's chakra was too acidic for it to dissolve. His left arm was badly burned, and he had to use even more of Mother's chakra to protect his other arm from getting hurt more. In order to keep up with Naruto's speed, he had to make the tail as well. Gaara was getting very angry because he couldn't get another hit on the blonde. He finally had enough chakra to turn into Shukaku the Sand Priest's whole body. The sand started to build up around him, making a huge tanuki shape. Gaara's body showed up on top of the huge sand formation. He put himself to sleep with genjutsu. The tanuki roared, "Mwahahaha. I am finally awake. What is Kyuubi? Add more chakra." "Okay, but your body can only handle one more half tail." "That's enough." Kuchivyose, the Three Muses. There were a lot of Anbu, Joker, Harley, Ivy, Yamato, and all of Hachiman's banners gone when they got to the roof where Domon and the old Hokage were fighting Orochimaru. It was Joker's order that everyone who wasn't the snake Sanin should be caught alive by the DTI. The Anbu agreed right away. Most of them thought that Mr. J should torture the enemy ninja, but a few were afraid of what might happen if they didn't follow the clan head of the Uzumaki. Everyone was shocked when Orochimaru told the Sound 4 to drop the barrier and run away. Take down the wall? The mission was completed. Get away? Well. Joker quickly got over his shock and swung the huge sword, calling up the second banner again. This time, it created an elliptical barrier around the whole building. But not fast enough. Snake Sanin, which was sticky but whole, shot out of Orochimaru's mouth like a bullet, above the barrier before it could form. He bounced off the barrier and ran away, killing any chasers who couldn't keep up. He couldn't go back into the battle, though, because it took so much chakra to shed his skin in that way. Their master's empty skin floated down, making it look a lot like a deflated balloon. The only woman in the Sound 4 began swearing very loudly while several Anbu piled on top of her. When Harley gave the fat guy a boot to the back of the head, he passed out right away. The two-headed one was hit by a tree that Yamato and Ivy had grown. The being with 6 arms quickly looked at Joker, the Hokage, Domon, and the other 12 Anbu. Then, he pulled off a roof tile and hit himself in the back of the head with it, knocking himself out. "Huh," said the Joker. Someone nearby asked, "What?" "Oh, I just hadn't pegged that one as a wussy quitter." A huge cloud of smoke appeared, which surprised the Tamari who was hiding because she thought Naruto couldn't call up anything bigger than Hachiman. She quickly found out she was wrong. Not right at all. After Naruto called, there were 4 laughs. One of them was his own, because he was so tired. It took a huge amount of work to summon the biggest boss summon that existed. She was almost the same size as any Bijuu. When the smoke cleared, a hyena with 3 heads was seen. Her 3 heads all smiled, but only the one on the left really grinned. The right head smiled, but it was a sad smile, like it felt bad for everything. The central head looked at everything and smiled as if she found it funny. I welcome you, Lady Cerberus, boss of the hyenas and jackals. That's very kind of you, the right head replied. I am Melpomene, the muse of tragedy. Mistress of sorrow sounds better, the person on the left laughed. I am Talia, keeper of laughs. The central head laughed and said, lies and slander. You're the muse of comedy. I'm the muse of history, Cleo. And I'm going to kill you all. Shukaku yelled as he spit a tight ball of air at the summon. Melpomene screamed as if she were crying, which made a wave in the air that stopped the attack. Talia's tongue shot out when she was done. Because her tongue was as thin as paper and as sharp as a razor, it punched Shukaku in the back and cut off his right arm. As a response, a wave of sand came at Cerberus and made it jump away. Cleo started to talk as soon as she landed. She talked while Melpomene tore a tree out of the ground and spit it at the big tanuki. So, Shukaku the Sand Priest, the Ichibi Bijuu, right? Shukaku used his left arm to block while his right arm changed shape. He had to duck as Talia's tongue tried to cut off Gaara's head while she was sleeping. Of course I'm right, what was I thinking? She was cut off when the big tanuki spit out another ball of air at them. Melpomene wailed like a banshee again. Then Talia pulled her tongue back while she and Melpomene took deep breaths. You think you're so tough, don't you? Talia and Melpomene both spat fire at the same time. As the blue flames raced toward Shukaku, they formed faces out of them. The one on the left changed into a mask that laughed and smiled, and the other changed into a mask that cried and frowned. They went off when they hit his arms, and sand fell all around him as he covered his face. The truth is, you're not. You're pathetic. As soon as another wave of sand hit Cerberus, she jumped away. It missed, but it did destroy about an acre or two of forest. Two more masks on fire charged at Shukaku's back, making him use his tail to block them. Shukaku knew that something wasn't right. He felt like an outside chakra was entering his body and slowing his regeneration and making him move more slowly. He then realized that Cleo's words had chakra in them, which is a form of sound-based genjutsu. A human priest possessed by a minor demon and then eaten by the Ichibi, a mindless tanuki demon. Cerberus jumped on Shukaku's back and flattened what was left of his tail. Melpomene bit into his right arm while Talia bit into his left. While Naruto jumped off of Cleo's head and ran along the demon's face to get to Gaara, she said one last thing in the tanuki's ear. No wonder you're Sanagakure no Sato's bitch. Naruto then moved so fast that the sand couldn't keep up with him. He kicked the sleeping redhead in the groin, which woke up the boy in terrible pain. The tanuki demon whimpered, no. I just woke up. Cerberus' three heads laughed as the sand broke apart. Talia said, thanks for the fun, clown pup. Cleo said, this is the first time in 100 years that we've been called. What a shame, Melpomene said in the end. Don't make us wait that long for the next fight, but don't summon us for trivial reasons either. Yeah, Cleo agreed. That would be annoying. Could you make some angel food cake ahead of time for next time? Talia asked. The other two heads yelled, say what? Before Cerberus vanished. Naruto punched Gaara in the face while grinning as Shukaku's body fell on top of them. The other boy tried to protect himself with his arms, but they didn't work because the blonde kept getting past his guard and beating him up. All of a sudden, the sand gave way, and both boys fell to the ground. He broke both of his legs when he landed. Gaara's shadow clones from before put his arms over their shoulders, and another pair picked up his hurt body and held him upright under his armpits. A fifth clone went through Naruto's jacket pocket and took a needle that was full of Smilex. Tamari ran out of hiding when she saw that her brother was in trouble. She was more worried about a family member than she was about the two Jinchuriki. She yelled, stop, and got her battle fan ready to attack. Two blonde shadow clones ripped the weapon from her hands, and another pair pulled her arms behind her back. Another pair hit the ground close to her feet and grabbed and held her ankles. His face showed that he was interested as he looked at her. She begged, don't hurt him. He asked his clone with the needle stopped, why do you care? He'll die happy this way. Gaara looked like he was ready to die. She could see fear in his eyes. He seemed to have lost his reason for living. Naruto got a mean look from her as she cried. I care because he's my brother. Naruto was confused and said, but you treated him like a monster not too long ago. She cried out, I know. And I feel horrible for it, but he's my baby brother. I don't want him to die. The blonde clown asked, are you giving up your life for his? Gaara, who was barely able to speak, growled, no, Tamari. Gaara coughed up some blood. Don't give up your life for me. No one wants me around anyway, and you're loved back home. Tamari wailed, Gaara. I want you around. Naruto turned his head away. If you both agree to stop being so sappy, I won't kill either of you, nor will I kill Mr. Mascara. The young clown made both of the Sabaku siblings look shocked. Naruto pointed his head at the clone that had the needle in its hand. The clone put the Smilex into Naruto's arm, which scared both of his siblings. That's the good stuff, said the youngest Uzumaki. Dispel to let the others know not to kill the doll maker. We're heading back to Konoha with our 3 prisoners. The clone gave a salute and then vanished. Some people thought seals were funny. He found it very funny that the Sound 4 was said to have cursed seals. 5. That's correct. The guy with 2 heads was actually 2 people. It looks like they are twins. The seals were really impressive. A storage seal that gave the subject psychoactive drugs all the time was linked to a second storage seal that looked like it had a temporary mutagen in it. A few chakra storage seals and one that hurts. One seal made the person more angry, and the other marked them as Orochimaru's. Lastly, the seal had a number of booby traps that kept people from figuring it out. Before he started to work on the Fat One's seal, Joker cracked his knuckles. The Hokage said, "Hello Harley-san," when the woman walked into his office. "What can I do for you?" "Well, you know those 5 guards the Snake Man had?" "Indeed. Can my clan be responsible for them when we remove the seals?" It made the old man rub his right temple when he heard that. "You're pretty sure you can remove the seals?" "Yeah, but Mr. J is pretty sure they will have brain damage." "How does he figure that?" "Well, the Fat One seems to have reverted to a childlike state." The Hokage, blink. "So you've already started removing the seals?" "Yup. The man thinks Joker is his daddy and that I'm the mommy." The Hokage laughed a little. "Very well. I'll find some way to make it so. Good morning, Osor." When the scientist turned around, he saw a blonde teen in a black jumpsuit leaning on some crutches with a smile on her face. "Ah. The Uzumaki brat. Tell you father that I thank him for his gift. That Atonin he found in your home seems to be afraid of snakes, ironically enough. Injected him with your toxins, eh?" "It's a new mix," the Scarecrow man said. At Naruto's forced blank stare, he added, yes, to what he had already said. Then Osor looked at the blonde a little more closely. "Are your legs still broken?" The little clown said, "Yes." "Odd, isn't it? I usually heal this kind of crap within a day." The king shook his head. "What are you doing here?" "I'm a busy man." "Obviously," Naruto said. "Anyway, I volunteered to interrogate my 3 prisoners. That's why I'm here. I certainly do not envy them. Have fun." As the clown limped off to Gaara's cell, the scientist shook his head. It looked like Joker had calmed down a bit since he had finally found a useful way to deal with his crazy behavior. His son definitely got crazy from him, but Osor no longer had a problem with the older Uzumakis. He didn't like them much anymore, but he could work with them. Harley was standing next to a water cooler and drinking from a paper cup when Ibiki walked through one of Anbu DTI's hallways. The head of the Abuse and Torture Department raised an eyebrow at what he saw. He didn't know they had a water fountain. Odd. He went up to the machine, took a cup from the cup holder, and filled it with cool water. "So, how are things going, Harley-san?" "Things are going great. Especially since we'll be hearing the pitter-patter of little feet in our home again." "That's why you've been getting so big lately, you're pregnant." He raised his paper cup as if to toast someone he thought was going to be pregnant. In answer, Harley's eye twitched. "We're adopting." Ibiki yelled, "Oh crap," and dropped his water cup. He then ran away. Harley chased after him with her mallet and told Ibiki that she would leave enough of him for the hospital to cut back together. The Joker smiled. Hirobo's brain was hurt when his seal was taken away, making him act like a child again, but he seemed to be making progress with Kitamaru. The man with many arms had also gone back to being a child, but his personality was a little more grown up. Kitamaru thought like an 11-year-old, and Jirobo thought like an 8-year-old. He thought he finally understood how to cure the other 3 without doing too much damage to their brains. The seal on Anko wasn't the real thing, so he couldn't do it to her. But she worked and lived just fine with her seal still on. Also, Harley would kill him if he hurt her brain. The crazy blonde asked, "Did you know that your father had been killed?" The other blonde woman shrugged her shoulders no. He then turned to look at Konkoro, who also shook his head. Gaara shook his head and smiled when he looked at him. Bastard had it coming. Naruto blinked and then smiled. He liked this Gaara kid more and more. On his clipboard, he marked all 3 prisoners with a check mark next to a no box. The Hokage called a council meeting right away. The civilian and shinobi councils all sent people to the event. It was Danzo who asked, "What is this emergency?" He had no idea what was going on. "First of all, I'd like to call to your attention the bloody paperwork that has been piling up on my desk. It seems that many forms keep being sent to me that are so full of legal jargon that it takes me a few hours to decipher even one page. This gets tiring, and some of these forms are new laws that subtly take powers away from me and give them to you backstabbing bunch of pricks." A few of the civilians got pale faces when they heard this accusation and then screamed in anger at what it meant. Both Kaharu and Homura, who used to play with the Sandaime, frowned, but they were smart enough not to say anything to draw attention to their own guilt. "Outrageous!" Danzo yelled, which made the people calm down. "This only shows that you are having a bout of paranoia in your old age. Perhaps you are unfit for the pos." The Sandaime used a stage whisper to say, "Shish. You're scaring the birds." That made everyone quiet, as if they were confused. A lot of people thought the old man was crazy. A lot of people looked out the windows to see if there were any birds flying around. Danzo whispered back, "What birds?" and then screamed in pain. His chair turned into a tan mass that swallowed him up and tore off the bandage on his arm, which had many Sharingan implants in it. It also crushed his legs. He screamed until a piece of that mass covered his face, taking the Sharingan out of his eye socket and shoving a piece of itself down his throat out of his throat. The people around Danzo screamed in horror as the chair he was sitting in seemed to swallow him up. Even though the Anbu Nei showed up at Danzo's scream and tried to pull the shape-shifting mass off of their master, they quickly learned that they could only watch as Danzo died of suffocation. After a few minutes, his brain stopped firing any synapses because it wasn't getting enough oxygen. After a few minutes, the mass let go of him and revealed itself to be Domin. They were confused because they didn't know what to do without their master. They even thought about getting revenge on the person who killed Danzo, but they didn't want to because Danzo had never told them to do that in case it ever happened. It's likely that there wasn't such an order because Danzo thought no one could hurt him. Domin said, "Operation, 2 birds, single stone successful, Hokage-sama." "Thank you," the Hokage said. "With him out of the way, I am disbanding the civilian side of the council. If one of you wants me to approve of something, you need to get an appointment just like every other civilian who wasn't on the council. Anbu. Escort them out." While the civilians were being dragged out of the chamber, screams and yells of helpless anger could be heard. The Hokage, on the other hand, was just sipping his tea. After everyone left, Inuzuka Sume stood up and waited for the Hokage to recognize her and let her speak. She spoke after he did. She asked, "What about us, Hokage-sama?" She tried not to sound scared, but she couldn't. When the old man replied, "You're all still on the council until I get my next bout of paranoia, in my old age," some of the councilmen laughed because they knew he was joking. The biggest naysayers were always Danzo and the civilians. The next 3 were Uchiha Fugaku and my 2 former teammates. Those former teammates were very tense. Nara Shukaku asked, "What about the courts?" The Hokage said, "I can't do anything to them except pick new judges. I know that there will be outrage amongst the civilian sectors, but they've had this coming for a long time. Now, I'm going to handpick a few aides to help me with paperwork, as only the most important of documents should ever reach my desk." Before going on, he took a long drag from his pipe. "It has come to my attention that Orochimaru's bodyguards are being used for an experiment by Uzumaki Joker. The first one has come out of it with brain damage and thinks he is a child. Apparently, he thinks Joker-san is his father. I am going to call a vote to see which of you approve of releasing them to the Uzumaki clan to do with as they wish." All in favor? A lot of people put up their hands. Even Hyuga Hiyashi, which is strange. All opposed? There was only one hand up, Yamanaka Inoichi. "Present your argument, Inoichi-san." I just find it frightening to think of Joker-san and Harley-san having more children. I mean, look how Naruto has turned out. True. He is insane, but we owe our lives to him. Do you think any of us could have stopped the Ichibi Jinchuriki from leveling Konoha, even if we worked in tandem? He took his hand off. I see your point. Does anyone else need to talk or stand up right now? The Hokage asked. When no one spoke, raised their hand, or stood up, he went on. Meeting adjourned. And Naruto threw his clipboard into a nearby trash can and said, well, interrogation is over. None of the three of you know anything of value to our intelligence department. Gaara said, I'm sorry we couldn't help you catch the snake. They couldn't believe how open their brother had become since the fight with the kid clown. Naruto made a face. I'll see about getting you three sent back to Suna. He was about to get up when he changed his mind. While I'm here, tell me about yourselves. I've never had a brother or a sister before. It was possible for him to get the twins to be less innocent. Sakin and Yukon were freed from the seal, but they had to go back in time and become 13 years old. They might get better in time. He fixed them even though Kitamaru had a small chance of getting better and Jirobo had none. Also, all he had to do was work on Tayuya, and they would all become Uzumaki clan slaves. Kids. That kind of thing. No matter what Harley thought they were. Yamato was naturally tense as he walked up to Queen Ivy's door, holding a potted plant in one hand. The Hokage had given her the house because he heard she wanted a big garden with a greenhouse. Gamonfu told him to bring one of the rarer poisonous flower species to show her how much he cared. He stood there and knocked on the door. He didn't have to wait long for her to open the door. Oh? What does the Anbu captain want with me? He forgot to take off his mask. What a fool, what a fool. Stu, hold on. Great idea. She saw the plant. Oh, how lovely. He said, it gets better, trying to sound sure of himself. It is a poisonous species that is rather rare. The seed pods that it grows when fertilized contain a deadly toxin that primarily interferes with the bloodstream's ability to carry oxygen. She nearly squealed. How did you know I'd want something like this? In front of her, he took off his mask and showed her his very dark eyes. Common interest. She began to admire him like she would any other attractive person as soon as she realized he was that Anbu with the Mokuton bloodline. He was a human, not a plant-human hybrid like she was, but her animal instincts came to the surface anyway. After giving it some thought, she thought Yamato was very handsome, even more so than Harvey Dent himself. Yamato's heart rate went up when she smiled a small, secretive smile. Won't you come inside? I'd be delighted. Wow. And I thought my father was a psychopath. That wasn't really what the Suna siblings thought someone would say. He rubbed the back of his head. Well. You certainly are like cousins to me now that I've beaten on you three and you've lived to tell about it. Though Tamari and Konkuro didn't understand it, Gaara thought it made sense. He asked with hope, are we cousins? The young clown said, sure. I guess I know what you went through as a kid. Most kids my age couldn't play with me either because they died too quickly. Tamari turned pale, but Konkuro thought he was getting used to being close to the blonde boy. And I think you should have something. It was a surprise what he took out of his jacket. Any of the Suna siblings would say that they shouldn't have been surprised now that they think about it. It was a fake chicken. This was my favorite toy, Naruto said. It never broke. His name is Steve and I want you to have him, Gaara. He gave the toy to her. The redhead took a look at it and then picked it up. Its arms and legs moved around a little. Gaara was interested, so she pulled on one of the wings and saw that it stretched. It snapped back into place when he let go, making the whole chicken shake from the vibrations. Gaara smiled and looked clearly amused. He put the toy under his arm and said, thank you. He turned to look at Konkuro. I believe an exchange of technology is in order. You tell us about your puppetry and I tell you how to make automated puppets, otherwise known as robots. Am I sharing this with Konoha or just your family? Just my family. Sounds like a deal. Naruto smiled and then turned to the other blonde. Would you like some chakra manipulation training? It's how I move so fast and can change direction suddenly. Her question was, that was chakra manipulation? Yup. Wind manipulation to accelerate or decelerate myself and alter my momentum. Tamari gave it some thought. I could use it to keep my distance from close-range fighters and speed up the swings of my fan. Now you're cooking with gas. The three Sabaku kids just stood there and stared at Naruto. Oh right. That commercial only aired in my parents' home dimension. Temari just said, huh? Dur. Konkuro said. Does this have something to do with that public television device that Lightning Country came out with a few years ago? Spoke to Gaara. He then said, I don't have much else to do at night besides staring at the night sky. The other three looked shocked. All of the former Anbu Ne agents were to get new training from the Neko brothers. Especially when they are expressing how they feel. They learned that annoying people and pulling pranks on them worked best to make them angry, confused, frustrated, and sometimes even laughing. The person known as Sai still seemed to have a sense of humor, which made sense since Sai's last job was to report on what the Uzumaki clan was doing. Hey, Mr. J. Harley called out sweetly as she walked into the room, pulling Ibiki behind her by her left foot. Are the new minions done yet? Yep. Joker said, pointing to the 5 sleeping forms of Orochimaru's old bodyguards. They will think that we're their parents though. Harley thought, Naruto always wanted siblings. The Joker smiled. He looked at Ibiki twice and said, he'll be happy then. Is that a boot mark on his face? She said, he did keep dodging my mallet, as if she were talking about the weather. Some Anbu helped Naruto get the Suna siblings out of the DTI building so that its location would remain a secret. As Naruto led the Suna siblings to his house, Joker and Harley jumped out of the shadows with smiles on their faces. Mom? Dad? The Joker said, Shinobi of Suna, welcome to Konoha. Harley kept saying, Konoha. Konoha? Asked Temari, who was confused. Gaara said, Konoha, pointing to the small model of the hidden village that had appeared at their feet. It's just a model, Konkuro said in a low voice. The Naruto hissed, shish. Joker said, let us show you around. All of a sudden, music began to play. The genin turned around and saw Tayuya playing her pipe in a way that made it sound like more than one instrument. The other 4 ex-bodyguards jumped out and talked together. We are the ninjas of Konoha. Every chance we get, we fight. We do plays and chorus scenes. With a boot on the head. This Konoha is a good place to train. I have a lot of ninjutsu and kunai. They began to dance in a silly way, with Sakin and Yukon joining together because Sakin was better at dancing. Jirobo led the next verse. We are the ninjas of Konoha. We practice our improvi arg. Kids hit Jirobo in the face by accident, but he quickly got better as Yukon picked up where he left off. But we're often given rhymes. Those are not sing a bowl. At this point, Kitamaru kept singing. Because we didn't have a rough run. But we're really quite kappa-bool. After that, they did some acrobatic moves. Sakin started the last verse. We're tough and strong in battle. That's a real diamond in the rough. It looks like Hirobo's turn to sing came up. In between our quests, we wore sequin vests. And knocked the Hyuga onto their duffs. Besides Tayuya, they all sang the next line instead. It's a funny life in Konoha. Tayuya stopped playing and changed her voice to sound deep, using a jutsu that changes sounds. I have to push the pram a loot. They were done with their dance routine right then, with Tayuya's pipe playing in the background. They did a move called jazz hands when they were done. On second thought, the Joker thought. Let's show you around our home, the rest of Konoha isn't silly enough. Right, Harley agreed. Right, Naruto agreed. Gaara began to smirk as she said. Temari and Konkuro both said. The hell. The special Junin Ebisu was spending time with Gamonfu. Ebisu knew a lot about how to control chakras. After giving the strangely mean and angry boy a Rubik's Cube, Gamonfu also felt like he had something in common with Konohamaru. The young Sarutobi stopped yelling at Gamonfu while Ebisu was teaching so that Gamonfu could focus on solving the puzzle. He finally got it by the end of the 3rd lesson and was able to match all the tiles in just a few minutes. There was an understanding between the smart young man and the young student from the academy. Konohamaru called Gamonfu boss, and told his friends, Udon and Moegi, to do the same. All 4 of them learned from Ebisu and could do the leaf-sticking exercise even when they were thinking about something else. It made Naruto happy. He now had siblings. Also cousins. Joker asked quietly, son, as they walked to their home. Did you? Give Joseph to Gaara? Dad, that's Steve. Joseph got chewed to bits by Bonnie and Clyde, remember? Oh yeah. I forgot. Temari asked Naruto where in the village he liked being the most. He was going to say that it was his house, the DTI, the Hokage's office, the Forest of Death, or even Ichiraku's, but he gave it some thought first. He didn't go there very often, but there was one place where he felt calm and could get his thoughts in order so he wouldn't kill people in Konoha. He thought she'd want to go there. She was taken to the top of the Hokage monument, to be exact, the head of the Yondaime. As he walked with his crutches, he thought he might have looked like a zombie. I want to know if I can make zombies with my chakra. When they finally got to the top of Minato's body, they could see the village below from above. Naruto said, I've come here to calm down. I don't need to do it often, but it is very quiet. She sighed and he looked at her. It's very beautiful up here, Naruto-kun. Hold on, kun. Are we really that close? As he thought about this, she slowly moved toward him with her eyes closed and her lips pursed. Wait, Naruto said as he began to move back. Temari, what are you doing? She leaned in to kiss the other blonde. He screamed, hey. You're invading my personal SPAA, as he jumped off the edge of the Yondaime's hair and into the open air. The girl from Suna swore, oh shit. She was aware that she was dead. Naruto's mother would kill her if the Hokage didn't order it. Naruto looked at the fox in its cage. Feedback? So that's the reason you haven't been active? Yes, Gaki. The last time I fed you some of my chakra, a lot of yours flooded into me, damaging me greatly. I can no longer control my own chakra. Sue, that means that there's nothing really stopping me from taking a hold of your chakra on my own, is there? The Kyuubi took a blink. Kuso. Yeah, I guess that makes me the Kyuubi from now on, doesn't it? That made the fox cry so badly. My chakra. The plaything of that little psychopath, he yelled. Remaining sealed within Kushina would have been preferable to this. Naruto screamed as he sent the fox's chakra into his legs, which fixed his bones and fixed the damage to them. He flipped backwards and landed gracefully on the roof of an unknown building as he felt more energized. The blonde took a quick blink and then laughed. Oh hell yes. The laughing fox is back on his two legs. He broke his crutches in half by putting them over his head and smashing them into his skull. He was so happy that he wasn't hurt anymore. Even though they were made of steel. Naruto and Jiraiya were walking out of town together. The sage asked, so Temari won't get in trouble? Not unless she tells Hinata that she tried to kiss me, no. He waved his hand over Naruto's sake bottle and shook his head. So, what do you have in there? Hydrochloric acid mixed in a 1-to-1 ratio, by weight, with concentrated rattlesnake venom. Why? You want some? Before taking the bottle from his godson, Jiraiya thought, But then he remembered Naruto's family tree. No thanks. I thought it was straight sake. Then Naruto took a moment to think and then nodded. Sorry, I forget that most people are featherweights when it comes to poisons. The older man laughed and said, that's fine. I forget how hardcore your family is when it comes to drinking. Naruto laughed for a short time. So where was Tsunade seen last? The last any of my contacts had seen her was 2 weeks ago at a town to the northwest. Oh? The blonde asked as she put a rubber stopper on his poison bottle. Nothing but gambling dens in that direction for a few days as the ninja jumps. She's hooked on gambling, Jiraiya said. Naruto gave a shrug. And I'm a psychopath with rather violent tendencies. I don't see a problem with that. While traveling from Konoha to Pleasure Street Town, Naruto and Jiraiya talked about how they sealed things differently. The older man taught Naruto a lot because he was very traditional when it came to seals and had worked in the field for more than 40 years. The blonde, on the other hand, was actually crazy and the biological son of a sealing genius. He had found many shortcuts through risky experiments and was able to teach Jiraiya how to use them. When they got to town, a pretty woman with dark hair and a black dress without straps winked at Jiraiya. A bigger man moaned, whoa. He quickly looked at the blonde. Naruto. Naruto replied, rolling his eyes at the Toad Sage's antics. Yeah? Book us a place at that hotel. I'll meet up with you later. Have fun, you damned pervert. There was a knock on Naruto's hotel room door. He cracked a jokey snort. He thought to himself as he made a copy and sent it to answer the door. It must have already been turned down. He ran for the window as soon as he heard his clone say, "Hello, Itachi. Someone who looks like a missing ninja just knocks on my door." He thought as he sneaked out the window and jumped away. Probably not. He must want me, not Jiraiya. I don't blame him. He saw Sasuke running toward the hotel he had just left and threw a kunai at the Uchiha youth, but it just missed him. This made Sasuke pay attention. Next to Naruto when he jumped to the next roof was Sasuke. He asked, "Where's Itachi?" At that very moment, there was a big explosion in the hotel Naruto had booked. Green gases that smelled awful were pouring out of the structure's holes. "Hopefully suffocating on Smilex," Shinigami replied. "But not likely." Sasuke gave the blonde a mean look. "Why would you try to take my revenge from me?" "Look, I knew Itachi when he was still loyal to Konoha," Naruto said as he led Sasuke out of the hotel. "Back then, he was stronger than most Junin. Now, he probably rivals most Kage. Neither of us are at that level yet, but if he dies to a cheap shot, then all the better." Finally, Sasuke calmed down because he could see why it made sense. "That said, we're being chased." Sasuke suggested that they split up and each look for Jiraiya on their own. Naruto went with the plan because it would take the chaser's mind off of him. When Naruto made a move to the northeast, Sasuke went west, but Naruto went straight south instead. He went right through a wooden fence, which was a bad thing. He stopped right away. He looked at a group of naked women sitting in the hot springs. They looked back at him. He turned around and walked out of the fenced-in area before anyone could say anything. Maybe going northeast was the best choice after all? He took off running when he heard angry screams from women. Sasuke suggested that they split up and each look for Jiraiya on their own. Naruto went with the plan because it would take the chaser's mind off of him. When Naruto made a move to the northeast, Sasuke went west, but Naruto went straight south instead. He went right through a wooden fence, which was a bad thing. He stopped right away. He looked at a group of naked women sitting in the hot springs. They looked back at him. He turned around and walked out of the fenced-in area before anyone could say anything. Maybe going northeast was the best choice after all? He took off running when he heard angry screams from women. Sasuke had a lot on his mind. Jiraiya had to be found. He could bring the old ninja to Naruto if he found the Toad Sage. Once Jiraiya and Itachi started fighting, he'd be able to get in a cheap shot. It was a great idea. He really should not have run into Might Guy. Yosh. Sasuke. I must inform Naruto and Jiraiya that two S-rank missing nin are trying to hunt Naruto down. Naruto already knows. We have to find Jiraiya. They broke up? Guy's face looked so stupid at that moment that Sasuke thought he was dead. Kisame growled, "So I was really after the Uchiha runt after all." He smiled with his teeth showing. "On the bright side, I get another chance at killing you." His sudden swipe of Samahata at Guy was easy for the taijutsu expert to avoid. Naruto was able to stay out of sight from the few kunoichi who were bathing in the hot springs. Several foreigners were staying there, and based on how they spoke, he thought they were most likely from Kumogakure, Hidden Cloud. An unknown voice said in Naruto's ear, "I thought you were interested in that crazy Hyuga bitch. Be a shame if she found out about your peeping habits, no?" Itachi jumped out of hiding, threw a live squid in Itachi's face, and almost ran into one of the Kumo kunoichi. Before he could get away, she grabbed him by the collar. There were bandages tied around her long blonde hair, which Naruto thought was strange. Naruto was looked down upon by her dark eyes, but they were also very interested in him. Her black and purple blouse was almost too tight, but her black pants were not too tight either. A tight wound white bead chain was wrapped around her left arm above her fingerless gloves. While Naruto looked up at the woman, his seal shook, and in the back of his mind, the Kyuubi whispered the number 2. Being stuck on the squid's right arm, Itachi chose that moment to leave the trash pile. He used his left hand to point to Naruto. "I'll be happy to rid you of that nuisance," he stated. Naruto spoke up and pointed at the kunoichi before the woman could say anything. "I could understand if you hated me, but what do you have against her?" Itachi made a face. "I actually have nothing against either of you. I simply want what is inside of the boy." "Because that doesn't sound like anything perverted at all," the woman said. The two other kunoichi that were with her began to draw their weapons. The women looked shocked when Naruto asked, "Wait, are you after my Bijuu? Are you after her Bijuu too?" The woman growled at Naruto, and Itachi narrowed his eyes. "How would you know that I have a Bijuu?" Naruto smiled at the kunoichi and said, "Second, you just proved it to me. But I knew because the Kyuubi told me that you have the Nibi. Give me one reason why I shouldn't let him have you." Naruto looked at the Uchiha traitor and asked, "Why would he be after not just one Kyuubi? I'm guessing that the weasel would come after the cat after he's done with the fox." She looked at Itachi with her eyes. "We'll set aside our differences for now, Konoha-san. Just don't look into his eyes," Naruto said as he took out some cod. "He's got the Sharingan." Itachi laughed. "I thought you were trying to get away, Naruto. Now you turn to fight me?" He made the horse and monkey seals with his hands. "I'm just trying to get away," he said with a smile that showed his teeth were slowly turning yellow. He quickly turned the monkey seal over. "The Caustic Fist is a nice jutsu, but I thought I'd take it a step further. Fortress of Poison, Akuna no Yoroi." His hair turned green and his skin turned pale. Like with the Caustic Fist, bubbles of acidic chakra appeared around his hands. These bubbles were much bigger than the ones that formed around the Caustic Fist. It was painful for the eyes to look directly at him because the chakra and light were distorting his whole form. The red sclera in Naruto's eyes turned purple, and Itachi stepped back. Itachi's eyes hurt just looking at the boy because he was covered in chakra. This made it hard for his eyes to guess what the young Uzumaki would do next, even though they were trying to do that anyway. The Cloud Kunoichi in charge put up her hands. Each of her nails got metal gray and grew to be about a meter long. She growled, letting some of her Bijuu's killing intent show. "You're about to find out why they call me Hellcat Yugito." Naruto quickly moved forward and then to the left, while Itachi tried to avoid him to the right. The Uchiha had to stop moving right away because several shuriken were flying at him. He jumped over Naruto's kick and blocked Yugito's stab with his kunai. He tried to mule kick the crazy blonde with his free hand while the third kunoichi threw a kunai at him. It was very close, but Naruto just barely avoided it and grabbed Itachi's leg with both hands. When Naruto yelled, "Duck and cover!" the acidic chakra started to eat through both fibers and skin. Itachi's body blew up, showing that it was just a shadow copy. Another shadow clone of Itachi caught both of Yugito's friends and put a kunai to each of their throats. Yugito got up on her feet while Naruto climbed out of the trash. The thing that was touching his body was dying, melting, or dissolving as he got to his feet. What did the boy ask? Bunshin Daibakuha? Imitation of the Big Bang. Naruto was hit in the back of the head by a wooden beam, which sent him flying forward. The piece of lumber was being held by yet another Itachi, and this one fired back. Correct. It seems it was wrong of me to have Kisame chase after my worthless brother. He looked at Yugito. Keep out of this affair and your associates might yet live. The blonde woman made a noise that came from deep inside her. I'm already involved. He quickly moved out of the way of Naruto's dive and hit the boy in the kidneys with the beam, breaking the wood. Back out now, Itachi ordered, and you won't have to explain to a why two good kunoichi had to die today just to save a single leaf scum. When the boy's technique broke, it sent corrosive energy flying across the ground. He coughed while lying on his back in the dirt. He said, "Going to be red as lightning." You're not. You have my energy. Shut up, Kyuubi. Don't you know what a reference is? Itachi asked, are you going to come quietly? Naruto rolled over on his back and sent the fox's chakra all over his body. Pretty sure I'm a screamer, he said. Itachi took a moment. What? Think like the sexual deviant you are, he said with a weak smile as his colors came back to normal. Also, Hiru Banshu, Boka no Jutsu. He sank into the ground so deeply that it felt like water and he was made of lead. Itachi laughed in a mean way. Kachiyose, Yeba no Hachiman. Means calling Hachiman's blade. As he called up the three-headed jackal's sword form, Naruto stuck out of the wall into a small tunnel used for smuggling. What are we killing now? Someone strong, no doubt. Can we get some ice cream? Naruto said as he slammed the blade into the wall behind him, we're going to be a land shark. Itachi was going over in his mind the earth release jutsu he had learned before he had to jump to the side to avoid getting hit by a blade. Missed, it read. He dodged to the west, it said again, but this time in a different tone. Before it slid back into the ground, it laughed again. Blood smells like copper. When it shot out of the ground a second time, Itachi had to quickly run away again. A jackal's head appeared out of the side of the blade, though, and grabbed the rogue shinobi by the big toe on his left foot. The first voice sang, "Eeny meeny mine why mo." Catch a weasel by the toe, the second one went on. They all said at the same time, "If he hollers, bite it off." As the mouth bit down on Itachi's foot, the Uchiha let out a painful gasp and then pulled away from the sword. Because he was missing one of his important toes, he was lost, so it wasn't a surprise that he fell on his behind when the jackal spat the toe at his forehead. The third voice laughed and said, "Eeny meeny mine why toe." Itachi's shadow clones showed up near their dead master before Naruto could pull Kabikari Honcho back into the ground. The three Itachis picked him up with a fireman's carry and then took off in a swirl of leaves. People in Hachiman sang, "The weasel ran away." Naruto got up from the ground and threw Hachiman away. When he turned around, Yugito and her two friends were coming up behind him. The boy groaned, "Thanks for the help," as his legs gave out from under him and he fell on his behind. "So you have the Kyuubi then?" Yugito asked, not caring that he was thankful. "Yeah. Just like how you have the Nibi. I wonder how much ransom money Konoha would pay to have you bought." Her speech was cut off by Naruto's loud laughter. He laughed out loud as he fell on his back and held his sides. "Good one." One of the other kunoichi asked, "What's so funny?" Naruto went quiet. He rolled around in the dirt and laughed until he was blue in the face. "Oh, you were serious. Here, let me laugh harder." "So they wouldn't pay a ransom for you," Yugito said in the end. The boy stopped laughing and started to chuckle. "Nah. My dad wouldn't let them. He'd figure that if I could get myself into such a situation, I can get myself out. Also, Mom would charge Kumogakure no Sato by herself just to get me back." "Who are your parents?" "Huh? Oh yeah, you don't know," Naruto said as he got up and brushed himself off. The men laughed at the pale faces of the women and said, "Dad is known as Mr. J. With Mom's help, he managed to kill the cage. He turned away from them and began to walk away. "Thanks for distracting Itachi long enough for me to summon Hachiman. Maybe we can work together again someday, yeah?" Another person Yugito was with kicked him in the back of the head with a strong boot. Naruto fell to the ground after rolling forward. "What was that for? Your father tortured my older brother to death. And you think you can just walk away?" Naruto spoke out, "Attack me again. I dare you. I double dare you. They won't find enough of your body to fill a sake saucer." A red chakra shroud wrapped around the boy, making him look like a fox. Yugito choked the woman before she could attack him or him attack her. Naruto let the chakra go away as the woman started to pass out. The blonde woman said, "Sorry about that. I'll make sure she isn't allowed back into Fire Country. It was interesting to work with you." Naruto laughed as the kunoichi all went away. Translation. She's got a report to the Raikage about how strong Konoha's Jinchuriki is. "Yes, of course," agreed Jiraiya, who was standing right behind the boy. When he turned around, he saw the older man carrying the woman who had winked at him earlier that day. The woman wasn't awake. "How long have you been watching?" A good spy master never reveals his secrets. He then blinked and kicked Jiraiya in the shin. As the old man held his hurt leg in one hand and tried not to drop the woman, it was funny to watch. "It's magician, you senile old goat. A good magician never reveals his secrets." Yukiya stopped jumping around and looked at him with a serious face. "So?" Naruto replied, "So? You realized that Itachi and Kisame were way out of your league, eh? Is that why you bolted from the hotel?" "Well, duh. I don't have enough tricks up my sleeves to be able to deal with those two. I did know Itachi before he killed his clan, and he was pretty strong back then." "And allying yourself with another Jinchuriki? Finding her was dumb luck, honestly." Jiraiya smiled and nodded. He then turned to see Naruto. "What do you have there, Gaki?" "The weasel's wallet."
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.